Hello and welcome to another Starcraft 2 user submitted replay on Hamster Sales channel. Doing the second one of the night. I'm just so excited to watch and cast these games sent to me by folks kind enough to email them to me. Gets me very excited. This is the very first TvT I've ever casted. It was actually labeled ZVT, so I hope it wasn't accidentally the wrong replay sent to me. Either way, I'm going to cast it because it was in my email folder, and I'm going to fumble my way around casting a TvT, a matchup I know nothing about. Red player iJelly in the lower right position, and we've got Xorra in the top left. I believe this is Antiga Shipyard. I'm pretty sure I've got that right. I've had some recent problems remembering names of maps that have been around forever, but I have remembering this one that has only been out about a month or so. So I feel pretty good about that. TvT usually comes down to a lot of wackiness. I hear you can go Banshees in TvT, which is pretty crazy. Consider that more of a cheesy strat against Zerg, because you go Banshees against the Zerg and they're going Muta. That is going to be a lot of wasted money. But in this matchup, apparently you can use them to kill tanks, and you see Vikings, all kinds of crazy units. A lot of tank wars I hear. Honestly, if I see a game that's not involving a Z, I often don't watch because I feel like I won't learn anything from my own games. But Brood War, I used to watch it just about any matchup just because I didn't play it so much. I really loved watching Brood War more than I loved playing it, and I just watched it for the pure entertainment value. So I got to watch a lot of TvTs, the Flashes of the world take on all those crazy players, losing to Jaedong more often than not, but I don't know if that's actually true. I just love Jaedong, but yeah, we're gonna have a TvT. We're gonna see some tanks blowing each other up. This is good to see some Terran on Terran crime, as opposed to all the brutal things you do to Zerg in the early game. They're probably gonna be super manner to one another, though, not going for anything cheesy. That's what I imagine happens at TvT. It's just very gentleman-like combat, much like a Revolutionary War, American Revolutionary War era combat, where men just lined up against one another and took shots, didn't take cover. Who has a bigger army? Who has better army control? Who's got more firepower to bring to the field? When men fought like gentlemen, none of this cover and technology stuff using a aiding arson battle. But each of these guys scouting each other, seeing no early expansion, no 14 command center wackiness. That's again my my knowledge of Terran coming out. 14 CC, I think a much more popular build in Brood War. I have no idea what a super fast CC would be in Starcraft 2. I know for Zerg it's usually a 14 or 15 hatch, but no idea what you would do in Terran. What's the optimal time to send out a super early expansion? Instead, these guys are getting a barracks of the tech lab here, so we're seeing Marauders. I don't even really know how great Marauders are against Marines. They do have an armor, so the high attack speed, low damage, overall high DPS Marine, maybe not going to do so great against the Marauder, but they're of course not going to do their bonus damage, even though they can maybe, 5-shot a Marine? They have 45 life nowadays. Yep, takes 5 shots to kill a Marine. So, don't know how great a build this is. Maybe he's expecting some kind of tank rush. I don't know. He is getting stim, so maybe he's just going to stim like a boss, completely destroy what he expects to be a bunkered opponent. But iJelly instead opting for the Marine. That is the unit I would build if I were a Terran, because all Zergs know Marines are super overpowered, what with their shooting their guns from long range and all that micro type stuff they can do. Super imbalanced, everybody knows it. Marine walks into a bar, looks at the bartender and says, "Where's the counter?" I'm sure you've heard that once. Made its way around all the StarCraft 2 sites. But yeah, just waiting for the real action to begin in this TvT. I'm pretty excited to cast my first TvT. We're going to see how these Marauders maybe work out against a more Marine heavy composition. Expect both these guys to transition into siege tanks. I expect tanks to be very effective in this matchup. iJelly going to have his first siege tank scouted right as it comes out. That's always a terrible feeling to have your new tech scouted by your opponent the second it pops out. They know exactly what you're going for. Almost makes you want to tech switch, but tanks are so good. Why would you tech switch out of tanks? Has his siege mode on the way, electing not to yet siege this tank, maybe up to something else. Let's check out the APM of this game, which I was told in the email is in the Gold League. What is their APM at? Around 43, 44. That's about what mine used to be at before I used to spam the hell out of the early game, get it up to about 160 for the first minute, and then have it drop down to a much more modest 70, 75, something like that. APM, of course, not the true test of how good a player it is, how good a player is. APM is only as good as what you're doing with it, so let's stop paying attention to that. On the way, some more Marauders for Xorra, another siege tank for Jelly, right? Yeah, iJelly. 3 more Marines, going a very standard Marine tank. I like it. Marines and tanks, pure Terran, exactly what you think of when you think of Terran. Xorra going for these newfangled Marauders, which I imagine could be very effective against a tank. You stim your Marauders and focus down tanks, and what is it? 8 shots to kill a tank, so a couple volleys from these stimmed Marauders. Gonna very quickly take down a tank, which, you know, tanks do quite well against Marauders, of course. Bonus armor, damage versus armored, but we're gonna have to wait and see how this works out. I like this army mix from Jelly. It looks pretty dangerous. 1 base Terran versus 1 base Terran. And, oh, Xorra going out for a drop of his own. Going to be extremely effective. No turrets for either player. Of course, not fearing any Mutalisks, but drop going to be very effective, it looks like. Marauders and Marines. Those Marauders are going to wreak havoc on the buildings. But Xorra definitely not going to have enough to deal with this push because he's going for that big, big drop. So we are likely going to find ourselves in a base race situation, folks. iJelly moving out across the map. It's all going to come down to, I think, how quickly iJelly realizes that his opponent is not just turtling, that he actually has no forces. He will probably realize it as soon as all this infantry unloads itself in his base and starts destroying stuff. So taking up position in the natural, iJelly, siege tanks on the low ground, moving all his Marines up the ramp, extremely bold. Really, I don't think he knew whether or not his opponent had siege tanks or not. Maybe he did. But he is quickly finding out there is nothing left in his base. In Xorra's base for defense, but also quickly finding out that there are a ton of units in his own base. Base trade here, I think, going to hugely favor Jelly. No defending units whatsoever for Xorra, and siege tanks do massive DPS against buildings so long as he leaves them landed, of course. Xorra going to lift off the command center. No SCV stored in its belly, but not going to survive anyway, so that's irrelevant. Xorra instead electing to maybe charge his opponent with his remaining SCVs. Why not? They're not doing anything else. Xorra doing quite a bit of damage to himself in the main, but I really expect Jelly with the superior army count. Let's take a look at the army tab. Yeah, much larger army, much larger supply count in general, and much more money invested in that army. Going to be taking out the base much quicker. But, oh my gosh, iJelly has to be very careful not to lose all his buildings. This command center has a good amount of health left. These supply depots tucked away at the top of the base. Going to take a while to take those out. And iJelly taking out most of the buildings of Xorra, but really wants to make sure to get this supply depot, every non-flying building he can before he heads back to his own base to defend. But electing to do that anyway. And Xorra, nope, not electing to suicide his SCVs in a silly fashion. Instead doing something much smarter, setting up an expansion in a pretty sneaky place. You don't expect your opponent to re-expand right next to your original base. So just a wacky base trade situation. iJelly with a much superior army. If he runs into Xorra here, he will completely wipe him out. These SCVs for Xorra moving all the way across the map. Maybe set up a second expansion. So we are in a hunt down the last remaining base mode here in this first ever TvT that I have ever casted. So far, very entertaining. Nice little base trade right off the bat. Xorra went for this drop that would have been extremely effective, but he had no idea that iJelly's death squad was marching across the map to completely wipe him out. And Xorra's brand new expansion not going to be around for too long. iJelly with some sexy stutter steps there to take it out. Incredibly unnecessary but very stylish micro to kill that CC. Was maybe expecting a Xorra was defeated message after that, but instead he's going to have to hunt him down. I don't know how confident he is at this point. It's got to be scary being down to a single command center with maybe 40% health, so instead going to adopt this impenetrable defensive position and throw down his mules to start getting that money back. Xorra spending his last, most of his last available resources on a final last-ditch attempt to re-expand. Impossible for iJelly really at this point to know, with no vision of the map and no scouting whatsoever, to know how dire a situation Xorra is. If he knew this was all he had left, I'm sure he'd be sending his army out across the map to finish it off, but instead doing the smart thing, setting up a strong Terran turtle. Xorra has an army left, so he can't feel like he's out of it yet. He knows he completely destroyed, in impressive fashion actually, with an inferior number of units, able to destroy iJelly's base, and about the same time iJelly wiped out Xorra's, so I was pretty surprised by that. But Xorra looking to take out any hidden expansions along the way. Doesn't know how much, well, I guess he probably does know just about how much better a position iJelly is in. But we could see a snipe of this last remaining building of iJelly's if he is not very careful. He is, you know what, he cannot make SCVs. That is something I've not yet noticed. It's going to be completely impossible for him to make SCVs until he loses a lot of army. Just because he has 0 supply depots and he's got 43 supply worth of units. So there's 0 way he can get any more money. Those mules just serving to throw more money into the trust fund. Meanwhile, Xorra, I guess you could say, was in a better position as few of his SCVs survived, or quite a few of his SCVs survived. He's mining money back. He's able to produce supply depots and is going to soon be able to get production structures back. But that has to be a scan by iJelly, and very intelligently is going to march out across the map. I can't imagine Xorra will get too formidable a defense up in time, so this looks like the last march for iJelly, going to completely wipe his opponent out. Going to be rewarded for having the superior army when they both pushed out. Xorra pushing out with a drop, iJelly pushing out with a more traditional brute force army of Marines and tanks, and that is going to win him the game here, it looks like. Able to pick off either a desperate escaping SCV or scouting SCV. But oh my god, Xorra with the dropships here could land and kill this command center. It's got 0 health. Really going to need to lift it off so quickly so the Marauders, which is the bulk of this force, are not doing tons of damage. I really hope for his sake, he's keeping an eye on this command center. Also going to have to cancel that training SCV in order to lift off. Hopefully he's got the micro to do that for his sake once again. iJelly sieging up, going to be able to quickly take out what remains for Xorra. Xorra has a planetary fortress, so these Marines not really going to be able to engage. Is Xorra moving in for the... Oh my god, Xorra might be finishing off iJelly here. That would be a horrible fate for iJelly, who had a pretty significant advantage given the game state. Oh my god, it is in the red. Oh, and there are plenty of Marines here to finish it off. I think this is it for iJelly. Despite having a superior army, he's going to lose this game. Right? That was his last building? Yes? Yeah, that's the end of the replay, folks. Oh gosh, so after what looked like a commanding lead, a much superior army, and scouting out his opponent's last base, iJelly loses the game because of a clutch drop from Xorra, able to kill the last command center, sending Jelly to the jaws of defeat. Based on the name of the email that sent me this, I'm pretty sure Jelly was the one who sent me this. If that's not the case, please comment below, but very cool of you to send in a replay, the very entertaining replay where you happen to lose. Thank you for sending me my first TvT, and anybody who's watching, thank you very much. More user submitted replays are on the way.